I moved. And my last video that I did was talking about moving and how much I kind of dreaded it and packing up vinyl and just moving in general. And of course, I had some horror stories about vinyl in the past or CDs in particular getting so damaged I had to pretty much throw them away. But I'm pleased to say the move went pretty well this time. No catastrophes around music, at least that I haven't noticed. Nobody dropped any boxes or anything crazy like that. So, and getting all organized, I mean, it pretty much looks the same, but we've got a music room here, which is super cool. So, we're going to be building that out and adding more records. My girlfriend's records have not come yet, and she's got tons. So, that'll be fun and give me a whole new um, uh, library of music to start listening to and discovering. We have some overlap, but there's plenty that we don't. So I'm excited about that. But recently I watched this documentary on Jason Isbell called "Running with Our Eyes Closed." Special thanks to Long Cut for suggesting it. And it was, I know a lot about the Drive-By Truckers and Jason Isbell, and I've been a fan for quite a while. And part of that reason that I was a fan of the Drive-By Truckers was him. I caught on to the Drive-By Truckers with Southern Rock Opera, and I bought it, and I don't know, I must have bought it, but yeah, I before I saw the show, but I saw them at the 400 bar in Minneapolis, and this is just one of those stories that I'm just like, oh my god, kicking myself. They were playing, it's a really small place, but I was on a date, and she hated it, and she like begged me to leave, and I reluctantly left after like I don't know 3 or 4 songs. Yeah, and that would never happen again because I became a super fan after that. Around the time of Southern Rock Opera, they were a curiosity. They were getting a lot of attention. I've never gotten into that album the way that some people have. I like it, but it's definitely not a favorite. But that was the album that Jason Isbell joined Drive By Truckers on. Not on the album, he didn't play on it, but the tour. They were starting to break. They're getting all this press attention, and he joined and went on tour with them, and was on the next 3 albums, 3 studio records, and became a huge part of it as much as Patterson Hood and Mike Cooley, who had been there from the beginning. And the first album that he was on was Decoration Day. And if I didn't become a huge fan with Southern Rock Opera, I certainly did with Decoration Day. And part of that is because of a song, songs from Patterson like My Sweet Annette and Sinkhole by I think it was by Cooley. Actually, I can't remember. Usually I know these things. I think it's Cooley. And then Outfit, of course, by Isbell. Phenomenal song. And Decoration Day, the title song, was his. And just a great album. The 3 of them too live. I never missed a chance after that. Missing them after a few songs with Southern Rock Opera. The next several times they came through Minneapolis, I was always there. And killer artwork. Just such a good lineup. That 3 guitar attack they had, and trading off songs. It was just like the best of these individual artists, but doing things that they could never do alone with the power of the band behind them. And truly, truly a remarkable band. And I worked my way backwards, but I must say I'm not that big on those first 3 albums. Piece of Deliverance I kind of like. The first one I don't really care for. Gangstability. Started to like them with Southern Rock Opera, but everything exploded for me with Decoration Day. And then it seemed like it didn't take very long for a follow up either. The Dirty South, which, might even be better. Just from the first song where The Devil Don't Stay, by Mike Cooley. We've got Tornadoes by Patterson, just amazing. And then something like The Day John Henry Died by Jason Isbell. And, his highlights probably are here are Danko Manuel about the band members. And Goddamn Lonely Love, which closes it out, are phenomenal. And I think around this time he was starting to get more and more attention. I feel bad, but I used to, my friends, I used to call him the fat kid because he looked like such a young kid that was in this band, and he was pretty chubby back then. But he just became more and more his own thing. And I remember by the time of Blessing and a Curse, which was, I guess, a difficult one to record because they were fighting. His alcoholism was getting out of control. He had married the bass player, Shauna Tucker, and I'm a little unclear on that because in the documentary it made it sound like she was in the band first. I always thought they were married first and then she joined the band. But anyway, she was in the band, had to be super uncomfortable as they're breaking up and recording this album, and he's drinking like crazy. But Cooley's songs like February 14th, no, Patterson Hood rather. Cooley just rules on here with Gravity Gone. I mean, he did that, and Space City is probably my favorite Drive By Trucker song. But you definitely had Killer Isbell ones like Easy on Yourself and Goodbye, I think is his. But they weren't quite as good as they were on Decoration Day and The Dirty South. But, around this time, he would play radio shows. I remember he played one in Minneapolis. Isbell would show up instead of the band, and he played a song called Dress Blues, which completely blew me away. In my mind, that was up there with Outfit. Outfit was a story of him growing up, kind of living in a trailer park, and his parents weren't able to go to college, and his dad, it's just kind of the rules for living that he heard from his dad, which is just a phenomenal character study. And then, Dress Blues is all about, casualties of war, I guess. But he was always amazing, and it was like really interesting to see him kind of show up at radio appearances by himself representing the band. But this would also be the last band album with him. I think it might have been the tour or maybe the start of the next record where they're just like, hey, this isn't working. And it was a little confusing at first. I think he was blindsided by it. At least he claimed to be in the press. And there was a little bit of back and forth, mostly from him, just upset. But I think he quickly moved on. He put out Sirens from the Ditch, which included Dress Blues, and Patterson Hood, I believe, had produced that. I think that album actually was in the works, a solo album, before he was let go. And he just put out a solo album pretty quickly. But it was really interesting after that, right? This all took place in like 2007. And Drive By Truckers, lose a guy that's gotten so much attention for them, a principal songwriter. I mean, by the time of, each one of these albums, really, he was just a really force of nature and getting a lot of attention. People knew his name, not just the Drive By Truckers, they knew his name too. So they followed it up, Patterson Hood and Mike Cooley, by kind of going back to the drawing board and just like, okay, what are we good at? They each had a bunch of songs, probably because Isbell had quite a few songs on the records. They had more to give, maybe a backlog of songs. They also kind of went for a little bit more of a traditional country record in some ways. At least some songs on Brighter Than Creation's Dark, but it's a great album. I love it, and it's funny. It's funny when you move in a new place. It's like, what are you gonna play, right? So I played this album fairly early on, and it just opened up to me in a new way. It was after I watched that documentary, Running with Our Eyes Closed, on Jason Isbell. And once again, Cooley just has amazing songs like Three Dimes Down and Self-Destructive Zones. Are just insanely good. I think they each have kind of, and Patterson has a ghost to Most, and The Righteous Path, and Two Daughters and a Beautiful Wife. I mean, really good, really great songs. I think they also have some duds on here. It is very long. Lisa's Birthday is kind of a dud by Mike Cooley, and so is Bob. Those are the two songs I would probably remove if I was going to edit this record. Not that I like doing that in general. And I think you could have Patterson's You and Your Crystal Meth, just a little too on the nose. He does that sometimes. I mean, he's a brilliant writer, but sometimes he's just a little too on the nose, at least for my taste. But you also have the emergence of Shauna Tucker, who was Jason Isbell's now ex-wife, starting to sing too. And I probably like it more than most. I mean, I think the Purgatory Line is a great song that she wrote. I'm Sorry Houston is really good too. I got a little sick of her by the time of, Blessing and a Curse and the one after that I actually really like, but I'm spacing on the name of. What is that? Go-Go Boots. I love Go-Go Boots. I'll stand up for Go-Go Boots any day. I love it. But then, so they're kind of carrying on, and I thought they kind of reached their peak without him with American Band, which would come out quite a few years later, like 6 or 7 years later. But and more than that, actually, almost 10 years later. I think it came out in 2016. But I mean, every one of their albums is great. I love the Drive By Truckers, and I saw them live about a year ago, and they just brought it again. I mean, they're always great. Jason, though, it was interesting. He put out Sirens from the Ditch, and while I love stuff like Dress Blues, and I think there are a couple other songs in there that I liked, it just seemed kind of like he didn't live up to his potential. A lot of it seemed just like generic bar band stuff, and just didn't seem that deep to me. And he put out two albums after that kind of didn't do much for me either. I started to ignore him, which I never thought I would do. It just seemed like he just wasn't all that interesting. He was just going down kind of this tired bar band type thing. He'd have a song once in a while that was good, but I kind of I kind of forgot about him. I didn't really, but it's like I just happened to take a chance after seeing him solo maybe twice and thinking it was okay, pretty good, but I decided to go see him in the summer of 2012. And I just remember thinking this guy has gone to a completely different level. It was a phenomenal show, and he was so in control of things, and it sounded so good. I was blown away. I was like, oh wow, I must have missed something with those albums because this guy's absolutely incredible. And I remember thinking something changed in his life. Something had to happen because this was a dramatic shift, and he went from being like kind of an average live show to putting on an average live show to putting on something that was just so good, so emotionally charged, and just amazing. And then about probably not even a year later, probably like 6 months later, Southeastern comes out. And then you start reading the press articles about how he got sober and he married Shauna, or not Shauna Tucker, he married Amanda Shires, who he was kind of like his June Carter. I mean, he was just really into her for a number of years, and then they finally started dating, but she insisted that he get sober. I think he wanted to as well before they actually got married. And he put out this record, and I mean, if that live show blew me away, this record certainly did. Cover Me Up Alone, I just was completely blown away by. I get tears in my eyes every time I hear him play that live, especially if Amanda's there. Traveling Alone, Elephant, Live Oak, even something like songs that she sings in the shower, songs she sang in the shower. It's just a phenomenal record. Yeah, it has a dud called Super 8. Most records have some kind of dud. But it's just a phenomenal record. To me, it's a high. I don't know that he'll ever top this record, and I'm sure he kind of lives in the shadow of that. It was kind of hinted at in that documentary a little bit, just trying to continually like best himself. And the documentary is really interesting, just providing like filling in the details on, him getting sober, and then something that I never thought of is the effect that has on Amanda Shires night after night after when she's singing along or playing along with these songs on Southeastern that chronicle some of his darker days. She mentions that Cover Me Up in particular, there's a few moments in there she just has a hard time listening to, which I kind of don't want to know too much about because that's probably my favorite song on the record. It blows me away every time he plays it. But just a phenomenal record, Southeastern. And the only disappointment I had with that documentary, Jason's got a new record coming out, I think in June. I thought the documentary was going to be about the recording sessions for this new album. Instead, it was recording sessions for the previous album, Reunions, which I'm warming up to. And actually, after seeing that documentary, I kind of appreciate more. I mean, there's always been songs I've really loved off that album, but the sound of it kind of annoyed me. It seemed like a little guitar flashy. It seemed like it had sort of an 80s kind of guitar sound to it. And it just didn't really do it for me the way that Southeastern did. And the one after that, Something More Than Free, and Nashville. Nashville, boy, I should edit this. The Nashville Sound. I thought, just If We Were Vampires Alone on that one is like, okay, you're done. Like, the rest could be filler and it'd still be a killer album. But he's such an interesting artist to follow, and I think he's one of the greats now. And everything he puts out is definitely going to be something I listen to quite a lot. Unlike those first three albums of his, and it's strange I haven't really gone back either. I almost see Southeastern as his first solo record, even though it's his fourth. So I'm excited about this new record too. I think it's so far I'm liking what I'm hearing. I tend not to listen to singles too much. I'm really an album guy, and I don't like listening to a single or the first two songs or whatever that are released from a record over and over, because then it kind of ruins the record for me. I like the whole thing to kind of seem new. So I'm sort of holding off, although I've listened to those songs a couple times. But anyway, you definitely check out Running with Our Eyes Closed. It's on HBO Max. And is it? Yeah, I think it is. It is at Apple TV. I think it's on HBO Max. Definitely check it out. It's a really good documentary. It just, really kind of explores their relationship and him getting clean, and what it's like to date somebody, marry somebody, have a kid with somebody who is also a musician, conflicting schedules, creativity. One person's like killing it, the other person might be struggling. It's just really interesting, kind of exploring that and listening and watching that documentary. But anyway, and you can't go around with the drive-by truckers. You really can't. If you're looking for a place to start and you haven't really dived into them, I would recommend Dirty South, Decoration Day, if you're for Isbell type material on it, as well as just being overall killer albums by them. And then American Band will just blow your mind. It blows mine. I mean, it's just such an album for the times, and it was recorded slightly before everything went pretty crazy in end of 2016. That's all I got. Thank you. More later as I dive into records and get more settled with this new place. Thanks.